It's 5 o'clock, so we're going to open the Rules and Legislative Committee. Everyone here is except Ed Castle. Let's bow our heads. Our Father, who art the hope of all the earth, remember us in love and guide us by thine wisdom. We ask thee to grant blessings upon thy servants, our community leaders, our county mayor, commissioners, city mayor, and councilmen. Bless us with the spirit of wisdom, goodness, and truth. May law and order, justice, and peace prevail. Defend our liberties, preserve our unity. In honor of thy holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the first item is approval of the July 19th, 2022 Rules and Legislative Committee minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The next item is consideration of placing the August 9th, 2022 Commission minutes on the September 13th, 2022 County Commission meeting agenda.
Move to place those on the agenda without a recommendation.
Second.
For those of the new commissioners that don't know why we place them on there without a recommendation is because we don't have the minutes to read yet, so we can't recommend them.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The next item is consideration of placing the notary applicants on the September 13th, 2022 County Commission agenda as requested by County Clerk Donna Thomas.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Veterans report was in the packet. There were 56 veterans that were transported and 35 veterans that came by the office in July. Any questions? Motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The clinic report is included as well. They're serving about the same number. It's down a little bit. It's 68 on the medical side. And on the dental side, I think it was like 29 served. So they do provide a valuable service for our community. That's for our own information only. The Ag Board,
Well, we weren't able to have a meeting because COVID, as y'all know, is kind of back a little bit. So I had 2 board members that had COVID and 2 had been in close contact with those 2 members, so I couldn't get a quorum. And that's just the reality of where we live anymore. So that was the only reason we didn't have the meeting was because of that. And I think a couple of them were sick, nothing major, everybody's fine, but that is what happened this month to us, and we just couldn't have a quorum.
Okay. No items of old business, new business is the County Powers Act resolution. I saw it in the package, but I hadn't seen it before now.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we've had several conversations over the past year and a half about regulations for nuisance and for sound and lights, animals and all that. And so I think we had talked about how we could address that. And I think we kind of put the cart before the horse because as municipalities have different authorities than counties do. So after doing some research, Mr. White and I looked at this, we found that in order to even start the conversation on nuisance resolutions or anything, and we're going to call them nuisance for just a broad term in there, we have to pass this act here, or this resolution. Now, this basically gives us the power to begin the conversation. We do not adopt anything by doing this other than we can now have the conversation about how we want to go forward. But it requires a 2/3 vote of the full commission to adopt this Powers Act. Then we can come up with some ideas and concepts which come back to the committee, which then comes back to the full commission. That all this does, Mr. Chairman, is to start the ball rolling. If the committee wants to study a little more, if you want to talk about it a little more, we can do that. This is just a first pass at where we want to go. So it does not do anything other than just allows us to start a
Okay,
conversation
so
on there.
basically it's generated by you and Chris White.
Correct.
Has anybody else had any input with it? I mean, it's gone through council, has John T. looked at it or reviewed it?
No. We have
Okay,
not.
I'd like for him to look at
That's
it
fine.
and,
That's fine.
I do too, because there's a lot, I read through that twice, and there's a lot going on in there, it seems like. And I'd like to get some other legal opinion about it, and since he's our county attorney, I'd like for him to review it, if it looks everything in order, then I'd say we're good to
I
go,
think
but,
that's a fine suggestion.
yeah, so I, you know,
I can ask Mr. White a question. This would be something where we've had the noise issues that we've had, like one night the man was in here that would give maybe the sheriff a little more, or however we had to handle it with people at 3 o'clock in the morning playing loud music and the things we've discussed in here before.
Correct. This is not to be confused with County Power Relief Act,
Okay?
which is what the county had to pass in order to, years ago, when you guys passed the school facilities tax. You had to pass the County Power Relief Act to be able to do that.
Okay.
This is the same thing, like if you want to, if the county wants to have some of the same powers, municipal powers that the city would have for nuisance ordinances and things like that, we have to first pass this. And actually, the first time it came across my desk was actually from the mayor's office. We got an email from somebody, it was one of the state representatives, not
I
our
think
state
CTAS. I think CTAS.
It was CTAS, that's right. And they were saying that the bill sponsor that sponsored it was going around trying to poll the different counties to see how many counties had actually passed it once it had gone into effect, trying to see the success of it and how many people were actually taking advantage of the new powers. And so that, actually, the number was quite low, you know, considering the fact that a lot of counties wanted this kind of power. And so, that, we were just talking about, Mayor and I were talking about, and just not too long after that, Anita and I talked about the same thing, and then I talked to Greg about it as well, and just, they let them know if we want to have any nuisance powers, we're gonna have to pass this bill.
But this does not in any way create any type of ordinance. It only allows us to begin the conversation if the commission wants to do that, because we have had a 2/3 vote. And so that's why I think the chairman's suggestion that the county attorney take a look at it, make sure we're doing everything we need to do here before we even go any further.
I'd also like the sheriff's input on it too, just what he thinks about this, you know, it's his input as well as possible, which I know we got a lot of time to do it, but
Input.
just what your thoughts are.
I just got it.
What your thoughts are about this helping.
it's gonna be deferred for a while.
We're gonna defer it, so we'll have plenty of time.
You'll have a chance to look at it.
We'll send you a copy and let you get.
I just want you in the loop on it, is what I'm saying.
I'll let you know.
Is that gonna include animal control as well with barking dog nuisances?
This doesn't do anything except says now we can start talking about issues
Right.
like that. We could, in the past, we could talk about it, but we couldn't pass any type of nuisance. And that's a broad term, nuisance I'm using here. It could be barking dogs, it could be lights, it could be, you know, if it's my haircut, we don't like there. So whatever we want to call a nuisance, we can gauge that, but it only gets us to the starting point.
If I could say something, I think what that would do is set a structure in place then that you could act on, where now currently, in layman's terms, they kind of say that we don't really have a structure for you to
Right.
set an ordinance or a nuisance or whatever you would want to do. If the state law doesn't clearly
Right.
give us the power to do it, it puts us in no man's land as to whether you can or you can't. But that this would bring a framework into the county government structure that if you chose to exercise a component of it through a nuisance or what have you, that you would then have the legal structure. And we'll get John T. to make sure that, but that's what I was hearing CTAS say about it.
Okay.
And that's why we pushed it on just to planning, because we know they get those calls all the time about, well, I want to not be able to have noise after 10 o'clock or something's loud or somebody's shooting or whatever. So from the sheriff's side of it, I think if you passed it, I guess what they were probably trying to ask you when you walked in was, would that help your officers have
Absolutely,
more,
that's what.
more
That's exactly
teeth
what I was trying to say.
if they knock on the door and say, hey,
Right.
look, turn it off, or when we come
Right.
back, we're
Right.
going to write you a citation or whatever.
Correct.
So that's what I think he was saying, but it's early on as to what it would be or not.
And one thing that I would hope we could incorporate is open burning. We get a lot of calls from where these tree services go and dump on the piece of property that I've leased to them, and then it's smoking up the whole neighborhood, and there's nothing we do. I mean, as long as they've got it loud around and people are getting tired of the smoke. We got one lady that's 5 times a week. She's complaining, nothing we do. Chris and I talked about it.
I think the chairman's suggestion is
So
that
it at least open that door where we
Yeah.
can start.
we're gonna send this to legal, we're gonna send it to the sheriff, we'll send it to the fire chief right here. Look at it, see if you have comments on there, and then we'll decide if we wanna go forward. And then after we decide by 2/3, then we can come back
Okay.
and we'll have a discussion. We may decide to do nothing on it. I mean, we may not can do anything, but at least this gives us the opportunity to start. So we'll defer for 30, if that's
That's what I.
30 days
I'd
deferral
like
on
for
this.
our legal counsel.
And you want legal to weigh in on it? Do you want an opinion or something from them about it? Is that what I'm
Yeah, I just
asking
want to
you?
read over
Yeah.
it, I don't know that,
Okay.
yeah, I'd like to see each county attorney have them input from me.
So we'll defer for 30 days with your permission.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Yes, deferred. The next is, under other business, we've got, of course, the newly elected commissioners are generally placed in August. And Mayor Ray said there's two things to consider, and we need to understand this, and I'll try to explain the way it's explained to me several years ago. First of all, the conflict of interest needs to be considered. An example of that would be law enforcement. If you're a sheriff's deputy, then they might not need to serve on the law enforcement, because most everything that comes up in law enforcement is going to be a conflict of interest. So that'd be one of them. The second one was, it had to do with commissioners from the same district serving on the same committee. He said they were, need to try to be separated. I don't know if it's always been true or not, but it's probably a good thing to follow. Of course, in the budget and finance is 7, but some of those other committees, there's not but 2 and 5, and you've got 2 sitting on the committee, then they can pretty much dictate what's going on. So he always tried to split the commissioners from the same district, having them serve on separate committees, and they were placed. I know when one kid came in 02, there wasn't any request. They didn't say anything. They placed you. Bill, when you came in, what happened to you?
I was placed.
That's right. What happened
The
to you?
same Julie was placed.
It was placed.
Correct.
If you think back, the way it's been done in historical, they've been placed. It takes the politics out of it. There's no favoritism. You can't come in and there's one position open, and you got 2 or 3 newly elected people wanting it. You're opening a can of worms there that's never been opened before, that I recall. They've always been placed, and that's, in my opinion, the reason why. Now, Eugene Ray never explained totally that. He just sort of said that. In fact, he grinned at me when I asked how I was placed for a few months, but that's how it is. That's how it's been the whole time I've been on there. As Commissioner Castleman's been on there 12 years under Eugene, and then he served 12 under my leadership, but he's not here to comment. So we'll go on. So we need to understand it. So this is the way it's going to start now. In January is when there's movement, and it's always when you're appointed last January, you're appointed for a full term to this January. It goes from January to January, the appointments do. And after that's done, then they'll elect a chair on each committee and a vice chair, assistant chair. And that's the way it's been done for 20-something years that I've done. So that's as far back as I go. So on the courthouse and property, John Boutwell, Scott Johnson, and Troy Thompson will serve on courthouse and property. Budget and finance, Diane Neely. Law enforcement, Jason Boyette and Eric Maddox. And on rules and legislative, Drew Hooker. And that's the 7th place. And in January, if you don't like your position, you talk to any other commissioners, and then that's when the movement takes place. In fact, the only one I recall, 20 years, is Commissioner Anderson. You moved last January, didn't you?
I did.
And how did that happen?
Commissioner Sanders, Jason Sanders asked me if I would be willing to move. And And I said, sure. So we moved.
Okay, and it was not a problem with the commission.
Nope.
So that's how that'll take place again in January. Okay, yes.
So once you place them, then they have to agree in order to be moved?
Well, they stay there until January.
I know, but come January, if I submit a request in December, I wanna go to a different committee, and just how I'm gonna swap you, Bill, just for instance.
You and I have to come to an agreement and the
We
commission
have
has
to
to
come to
approve.
agreement or it ain't gonna happen, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Correct.
So these are,
That's right.
these are permanent appointments, not
Yeah.
temporary.
Well, it's to the end, it's to the end of the term.
Well, the end of the term in January goes to the full commission.
Right.
I mean, everybody votes on it in January.
Yeah, but you just got me saying that I have to agree to swap in order for that to happen.
Well, that's the way it normally does. I guess if you want to play Powerball, Mark,
No,
and you want to get, you know,
no,
you
I'm
want
just
to get a
saying,
bunch
I'm
of
just asking a
commissioners,
question.
and I guess you can.
No, I'm just asking
But
a
that's
question.
normally what's happened. That's what
I may
happened.
be right
the
where
last
I'm at,
time.
I'm just asking for these others.
Okay. Commissioner Young.
I don't have the bylaws with me,
I do.
but, I believe in the bylaws, it's seniority. Well, he's fixing to read it, but, on the request to move or to whatever, seniority comes into play on it, if Greg can find
I think that's right.
that. So, I guess what I'm saying, they're permanent till January, but then seniority could,
Yeah,
In my
if you,
opinion,
I think so too.
Right.
We're getting into some weeks we haven't been into, but if you got 10 votes, you probably can, yes. Yes, you can probably dictate what you want to do.
I'd like for Greg to, I'm sorry, Greg, I don't remember which section it's in. It's under voting, I think, or committee, it's probably under committees, that towards the back.
This is it.
Hey, Will, is any other announcements? I know that, we're meeting a week earlier than we have been, but the Celebration City Car Club is still meeting the last Friday of every month. I think it's not this Friday, but the next Friday, I think it's August 26th. They, right here on the square. I believe this morning there, was, I think there's gonna be a meeting at TCAT with chicken.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow.
Tenders and tea. Of course, it's in the middle of the day, it's at 11:30, but it's lunch out there. There's gonna be a number of corporations and businesses and other dignitaries in there. I think Shane Hoover,
Yeah, sent out.
text that out. So if you can, you wanna go to lunch, it's at the TCAT, Center, and it's on Madison Street. It's,
You need to reserve.
that's right, it's RSVP, you sure do. You need to call if you plan on attending.
Shane Hooper's office.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Rule 6E, standing committee membership. All standing committee meetings shall be open to the Board of Commissioners membership. All standing committees of the Board of Commissioners shall be elected annually by a majority of the Board of Commissioners at the January term of the Board. The Rules of Legislative Committee, acting as a nominating committee, shall submit nominations for the standing committee positions to the Board of Commissioners based partially on seniority and individual preference. Only duly elected members of the committee in session may be recognized by the chairperson, or non-members of the committee, when recognized by the chairperson, may appear before the committee. Chairpersons of standing committees have the same voice as those of the committee, members of such committee. So, to me, it says that if this is an interim appointment, that you just said, but when it gets to January, then Mark and I have to agree to a swap, and if I don't agree to it, then you're where you are, so this makes this more permanent than it does interim. I'm raising the question out here, not.
I'm saying that certainly if you want to do it just on your own, and you got the votes, then I'd say you could. But this hadn't happened much, but I'd say it could, yes. So,
Make a motion to approve what you clearly stated there until January, that's how we place the committee.
okay, well, it's just until the end of the year.
does this go to the commission?
No, no.
We'll do it in January now.
I don't think the committee can act on behalf of the commission.
We've always done it this way.
We'll check it out.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, passes. Okay, yes,
So it says that you nominate them.
That's right.
So
yeah,
then
we placed them.
I would have, well, it says nominate them there, and then I would assume, does it not,
That
does
would
it
be
say
in
after you
January.
nominate, then we vote? And that's for the January one.
That's
It's got
January
authority,
first.
doesn't
January,
say
not
that.
tonight.
No, they're always been placed coming out of the elections.
It's got authority of committees after that.
I think what the chairman is saying is that the placement, I'm not putting words in your mouth, the placement is from here until they organize in January.
Yes.
That they're placed. I don't think that's a problem. But in January, the problem ensues when they're already temporarily placed, but they're really permanently placed. And that's my concern that I have, that if we put
You
qualifications.
can always move them. They can move anybody, but you open a can of worms
It
there.
doesn't seem like it would be permanent though, because if the commission's got to vote on it for January, then you can vote against it. Right, because everybody votes in January.
They just-
This is just stating it will be that way until January. That's why I'm
That's
saying.
right. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always been done.
It's going to the commission. I'll double check.
Okay, any other announcements? I think, we'll have, the newly elected commissioners, White Bird's gonna swear in, is that, 31st? Is it here? I believe that's on
It is
Wednesday.
here. Yeah.
The 31st at, was it 3 p.m.?
Yeah.
So if you wanna get sworn in early, you can come there. If you wanna wait until the next commission meeting, John T will swear you in before the meeting
Hey,
starts.
I want to get on the record before
Okay.
this committee closes. I don't think the committee can act independent without the commission, but we'll clear that up with CTAS and legal. But I believe that your recommendation can go to the commission for a vote up or down, but I don't think you can act without the commission. The committees don't have that authority, including the finance committee, cannot act independent of the commission. And I don't know about the word place, I didn't see that in the rule. So, if anything, probably the chairman of the commission has probably put recommendations forward in the past, which I'm not.
No,
I don't
they
think we
haven't.
do.
It's always been this body that's done it in the past.
Refer to Mayor Ray.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I told you what he said.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. They refer to Mayor
Well,
Ray.
that's when he was on the Rosen legislature. That's not when he was county manager.
Yeah, we'll
This
get it.
was
I
when
just
he
don't
was
think the
chairman of
committee,
the roads.
I just want to be clear, I don't think the committee can act independent of the commission. You are a body, you're making recommendations to them, just like the finance committee makes recommendations to the commission.
I know it's what it's always
They
been.
can't
so
act
I'm
independent.
trying to follow
Absolutely,
history and tradition.
absolutely.
And that's the way it's absolutely always been. Okay, any other questions? Okay, you mind?
Can I change the subject?
Yeah, yes, sir. We want to hear about the veterans.
Yes, sir. Last Wednesday, if everyone knows, that the president signed the new PACT Act. And with this is going to open the doors to hundreds of more veterans in our county and thousands within the 5-county area. This is a landmark thing. It's a $300 billion system in which the VA is going to be overwhelmed and swamped. Thank you for your support, Mayor, on what you did downstairs and all the things that are going to go along with it. Just want to pass that along. So we're going to see a lot more people in the office and take a lot more to the VA hospital in the next couple of months. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
Motion adjourned.
Okay, so moved.